So when people like understand how, like when to change things, is that because they learned it through trial and error, or because they have some sort of like other knowledge other people don't? They took, I don't know, some.
I think it's usually trial and error. Unless someone gives you like insider trading information, so they're like, hey, this company's gonna do this, and you have like a secret advantage. Usually it's whoever experimented faster and figured out that they were like wrong faster.
What have you seen to be, I guess, the top maybe 3 companies that are like student ran, like students are picking up some skills and starting their own business or starting their own, whatever, like maybe the top 3 that you have seen that have essentially the youngest entrepreneurs?
They usually get venture capital. So those are usually the ones out in California that you hear that are like the Stanford dropout. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so they fit a certain profile. I think Facebook was the really big example early on. Actually, I'll go back even further. You guys know PayPal? Do you guys know what that is? Right. So I don't know. Like there's Venmo now, so maybe they don't know what it is. So PayPal was started by a bunch of people, including the lovely Elon Musk, and they all left PayPal after it got sold to eBay. And then every single person that was a leadership team at PayPal, they were all in their like 30, like most of them were coming out of grad school, went on to found an even bigger company after. So Elon Musk, everybody knows, went from PayPal to being the president of the United States. And so he has founded a bunch of stuff. Peter Thiel left PayPal, started Palantir, a bunch of different companies. Everyone that left there started a bunch of companies. So I think PayPal is the original company that took a bunch of young people. They took over the world, and after that, every single one of them went on to keep doing another thing. I think Facebook is another good example. Again, Harvard dropout, a lot of college students were part of the founding team. Facebook is now Meta, and it like is on everyone's computer and phone and everything. And every single member of that original team has now gone on to found an even bigger company. These days, the most recent one, I think is Stripe. You guys know what Stripe is? It's a tech company. They do like payments. But again, they were started by 2 brothers from Ireland. One of them, which was still in high school at the time. The other one dropped out of MIT when he was a freshman or sophomore. And they started it. It is now like the biggest private company in the world. And every single, again, founding member has now gone on to start a different, very successful tech company. They're almost always, like they have venture capital, so they grow really fast. And so that like accelerates their learning. And it's almost always in tech. Not that every industry doesn't reward youthful ideas and energy, but like in tech, you see a lot of young people get a lot of responsibility early on. And I think it's because of the chaotic nature, right? Since no one's an expert, you can't just be like, oh, I'm 50, and so I know how to do this from like 30 years of experience. No one knows how to do it. So maybe the 20-year-old intern does, and maybe he gets to stay on.
You obviously know a lot about this sort of stuff. Do you have any recommendations for like podcasts or books or anything you recommend people?
Boring or not boring? So not boring, there's one called The Acquired, which is super long, but it's like narrative based. So they tell you all the stories, and so you feel like you're kind of listening to like, I don't know, true crime or something. It's like you get into the people and the stuff. They don't just like talk about the numbers. So Acquired is really good. Boring. I'm not gonna say it because you guys aren't gonna listen to it. It's like just finance people talking. But Acquired's good. The Ben and Emil podcast is good, not for just startups, but just kind of like financial literacy in general. I think that's a pretty good one, and that one's not boring. I don't even think I can talk about them because it's kind of inappropriate sometimes. But yeah, it's like, that one's really interesting. You learn a lot without knowing you're learning. Yes.
I feel like since the pandemic and things like that, the gig economy increased. Could be just the confidence of people just believing in themselves to kind of kick up these gigs or whatever. But a lot of people are taking the wave of gig economy being high right now. how long do you think that wave will last, or is it infinite? Is it always going to keep increasing as people become more confident in themselves and become more resourceful? Or is that kind of like, is that gig economy and the confidence in that going to die down again?
Well, if I knew the day was going to crash, I would be a lot richer and I probably wouldn't be here. But I do think it can't last forever. In 2000s, there was a really big tech bubble. Pets.com, a very famous name, raised millions of dollars in investor funding. And then they went broke because the bubble crashed. Because back then it wasn't gig, it was .com. If you were a .com company, like you had a website, it was 2000, right? So no one knew anything. They were like, oh my God, this is the hottest thing ever, let's give them money. And then it burst, and no one did tech for a while. Like no one was investing money, no one was starting tech companies. And then Facebook came around, and that was kind of like the new wave of tech, and they were like, oh, social media. So it went from .coms to social media. That didn't really pop, but it definitely, I think, at one point was like a bubble. And then post-pandemic, I think the gig category, it exploded during the pandemic because we were all stuck at home, but we wanted McDonald's. So like we needed someone delivered to us. But I don't know. It's like that used to be subsidized, and now what used to be a $5 delivery charge, it's probably closer to 15. And you guys know, like they tack on 5 extra charges, and you're like, I didn't pay for that either. So yeah, I think that's probably gonna crash. Not financial or legal advice, I should say, as a disclaimer to everything said today. This is not financial or legal advice. I'm not a lawyer or an accountant, but I don't think it'll last. I think if you walked up to me tomorrow and you said, I'm gonna start a gig grocery delivery company, I would say, stay in school. So yeah, I don't have high hopes on it. But if you like buzzwords and you like bubbles, do something in AI. People are just handing out money for that right now. So think about that. Jackson?
Wrong question. Oh, for startups, especially ones that acquire like external funding, if they fail, I mean, you jokingly refer to like they get their legs broken.
That's if you get a loan. That's if you get a loan.
What is like a realistic outcome for if you have a startup and maybe you take a bad loan you shouldn't have, or maybe your bet just didn't work out? What is the outcome for groups that do that?
Again, I'm not a lawyer. But usually what happens is there is a list of priorities of who gets paid back when. So if you took a bad deal, it's more than likely that if your company is filing for bankruptcy and you took money from someone else, whatever money does exist or you can put together will go back to the person who gave you that money first. So they get like first rights to whatever you can put together. Second, everyone loses their job, so you are now unemployed. You probably won't get any money back, but if you did it correctly, what you lose is limited to that company. So no one's gonna come after your car or your house or anything that's under your personal name. Again, not legal advice, but assuming everything was done properly when you started the company, it sucks when anyone loses their job, right? But like the worst case scenario is not broken legs, but like gotta get a new job or get a new idea, and your investor or the person that loaned you money will recover what they can and they'll write it off. You know, if you got the right investor or the right person gave you the loan, they won't be happy, but you know, it's like 80% of startups fail. So ideally, whoever gave you the money knows that maybe 80% chance they won't get it back. But this assumes you have the right deal, right? If you took money from like not a professional person and their terms were not kind to you and you signed it anyways, I hope you got a good lawyer, because it's kind of about it.
One thing you brought up is how AI is becoming more and more prevalent, just how it's like people are handing out money for it. What are some of the best ways to get involved with it? Or if there was some sort of an idea that might involve AI, like what would be the best way to just start getting introduced to it?
First, try the chatbots. Most people think that's where AI stops. It gets much deeper than that, but like if you understand how those sort of work, you kind of get a good feel for where the ideas are. But it goes back to some of the stuff I was saying. Prototype early. If you have an idea about AI, hack it together however best you can. or write it on a piece of paper and say, I have an idea for an AI app that does X, Y, Z, and show it to a bunch of people. You don't even have to build it, just see if they like it. And if a bunch of people tell you no, then don't even bother learning the AI because that idea isn't good. But generally speaking, I like to tell people, especially students, right? How many of you, hands up real quick, consider yourself software developers? Nobody, cool, that's fine. I think that's good. In today's world, you don't need to be a Harvard dropout CS student to build things. That is the really nice thing about the AI stuff that's coming together. So whether or not you're a programmer, try to build, if you have an idea for something technical, try to build it yourself. The smallest, cheapest version of that thing that's in your head, build it yourself. No one's saying that's what you're gonna sell to anyone, but the lessons you learn trying to build it might end up pointing out the very things that you would have paid someone else to build and then found out. Like if you try to hack together a prototype and you can't even, I don't know, let's say your idea is about house price data, and when you try to hack together a prototype, you can't even access that data, then you already know this is a no-go. Because there's, like, even if I had a genius engineer, I can't get that data, therefore my idea won't fly. So those kind of lessons that you can only learn from trying to build it yourself. And if you're like, don't want to do that, I don't know, find a friend that codes and like buy them lunch and be like, this is my idea, can you do it in a night? And if they can't, buy them 2 lunches and see if they'll do it for you. But like, do it as cheap as possible, just figure out as quickly as you can if it's good. And then with AI, you can use AI to help you build the AI, right? So like if you don't know how to code, I don't know, ask ChatGPT how to code, and if it's simple enough, you might be able to do it by yourself. How to get involved specifically in AI? I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I would recommend going on YouTube. If you're on like social media, you can follow people that are big in that space, and you pick up a lot just by like osmosis. But yeah, try things. Even if you're not a developer, you can be. Everyone's a developer. They just haven't tried it yet. It's really not as big of an obstacle as you might think. Like, I don't know. I've met a developer of every kind, right? You don't have to be good at math or like a CS student. You can just do stuff. Cool. That would happen. Sweet. Thank you.